Hi, I'm Mick Sadler and it's 10 product photography tips. Tip number 1, get yourself a set of lights. With a set of lights you get a constant setup. You can recreate this every time, and if you're looking to put images on eBay or a website, then you can come back time and time again and get the same result. Tip number 2, get a light cube. This is a 50cm cube. As you can see, it has a front panel that takes off with Velcro. We've raised it up on a box so the lights are in the right position. But what a cube does is reduce your reflections, and it also softens the shadows. We do also do an 80cm, and that is obviously quite a bit bigger. Tip number 3, sit your camera on a tripod, because you sit your camera on a tripod, it will be firm, means you won't get any camera shake. And you can set the aperture to give you the biggest depth of field that you want, and you can also set the ISO low, which means the camera will make up its own mind as to the exposure, and that can be up to a few seconds. Tip number 4, use exposure compensation, because if you're letting the camera decide what the exposure is, then if it sees a big expanse of white or a big expanse of black, it's trying to get that to a grey. So if you're photographing something and you want a white background, then you need to alter the exposure compensation. You need to make the image lighter, and you can see that you'll be able to see that on your screen. Right, we're shooting this at f16 to give maximum depth of field, and we've set a 2-second delay here to allow the camera to settle down before the mirror goes up. So we've taken one picture. We're now going to alter the exposure compensation by a third. So we're going to up the compensation by a third. Take the same shot, and we're going to up it a third again. Yeah, so that's 2/3 of a stop. So you can see the difference these three make, and all three the third one is probably a bit overexposed, but we can more or less get rid of the background. If we really want to get rid of the background, then we take it into some sort of editing software, Photoshop, Lightroom, and there's some Photoshop elements, and there are also some free ones that will do exactly the same thing. Tip number 5, don't use a wide angle lens, because a wide angle lens is going to give you this area, and it will also distort your product. So you need to use a lens that has a narrower view on a crop sensor. It's something like 50 millimeter. On a full frame sensor it's slightly more, but be aware that you keep your angle of view quite tight. Tip number 6, frame your subject very carefully, and you need to make sure that you put your subject in the frame and don't leave too much either side of it. Tip number 7, shoot your item in more than one position. So you take your initial shot and then change the viewing angle, so you've got more than one that will, you can then choose what one looks pleasing. Tip number 8, you want to use a small aperture. By using a small aperture, it gives you the greatest depth of field, which is what you need for if you're putting items on a website or on eBay. You may want a short depth of field, in which case you use it wide open. But f8, f11, f16 will give you the maximum depth of field. Tip number 9, shoot in RAW. Now you should always shoot in RAW if you can, because there's so much you can do afterwards. And I'm going to take a couple of these images and we're going to look at them in Lightroom and use RAW to change the look of them to improve them. Tip number 10, use photo editing software. If you want a white background, then you need to take this out in post-production. You can take it out by shooting it, but it becomes very complicated and a photographer's thing to set up, and you'll need more than 2 lights. So go into the photo editing software and take out the background. It's much easier than you think. Well, that's 10 tips for today, and we're going to look at them in Lightroom. Right, we've got our 3 images now. We're taking them into Lightroom, and if you want to take the background completely away, you're probably best to go into another editing program. Well, we're going to show you a few bits in Lightroom how to improve these images. We're in Lightroom 5 and we just go to the review mode, and you can see that the 3 pictures there, which are each a third of a stop away. The first one is not bad, but we are losing some of this highlight. And shot 2 is a bit better because we've got the highlight, but we've still got the background. So for this purpose, we're going to use number 2, and we're going to go into the develop module. And so this is our image we've chosen. You can see straight away that it's not straight, it's not level. And in Lightroom 5 there's a great new addition, and if we go to lens corrections, in here you can see we got upright, and we got different tabs: level, vertical, full, and we got auto. Now we're going to click auto and try and alter those converging verticals, and there it's done it. You can do this in other Lightroom software, but you would have to do it manually. So we're just going to go up to crop and crop to what we want our image to be. There's our image. We're going to do a few basic things. You can see the background has still got tone in it. So we're going to go to the basic channel. We're going to open up the shadows a bit to about 20, and then we're going to bring the blacks back a little bit, and so there we are. We can alter the highlights or the whites. I think in this case I'm going to take the whites. If you see the histogram up here, if we move the white slide to the right, you can see it moving across. And if we hold down the Alt key, you will see any white bits showing, and the top of the cap. So we just pull that back. We're on about 40 there. That's nice and bright. That's quite looking quite good. Last thing we're going to do is add a little bit of clarity, just to sharpen things up a little bit. And there is our image. So I hope you like this. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and any comments we'll try to answer.